In today's video, we're boarding Ovation of the Seas in Southeast Asia as I pull back the curtain on life aboard Royal Caribbean's mega ships. We'll soar 300 feet above the waves, enjoy 5-star dining, and check out a host of innovative new features. But there's trouble in paradise thanks to a disastrous room selection and a nightmare finding a table at the ship's main buffet restaurant. We'll pick up the journey in beautiful Singapore and I'll take you through the ultimate survival guide for life aboard some of Royal Caribbean's most impressive ships. In this video, we'll be wasting no time at all jumping on board. It's a short taxi journey down to Singapore's $500 million cruise terminal. It was super efficient through there, and we were then alongside Ovation of the Seas. We managed to board early, and first impressions of the ship were really very good. I liked the new modern style of the decor. It wasn't quite as grand as some of the older ships, but I liked how it played. As the ship was still nice and quiet, I was keen to head up in one of the glass elevators and check out some of the areas that I was most looking forward to seeing. Those areas are to come in just a moment. It wasn't the water slide, believe you me. So there's 3 main pool areas whilst we head forward on the ship for a moment. First is the main outside pool area. As you transition slightly forward from there, you have a covered indoor pool area, again for the kids, but it's not until you go further forward to the area that I was most looking forward to seeing, until you then get to the Solarium, which was spectacular. One megaship trend that I'm picking up on a little bit across the wider cruise industry at the moment is to have the Solarium at the very front of the ship. It is, after all, the prime real estate, and my goodness, did it work well on this ship. As I say, it was the area that I was most looking forward to seeing, and it didn't disappoint. These cascading pool areas, the extra large jacuzzis, the hot tubs, really did look spectacular. It was also an area which had a generous sized bar, and given how quiet many of the bar areas were on the ship, more on that a little bit later, it was ever such a relaxing area to spend every little bit of our spare time on board. Alrighty, so now for the moment that you've all been waiting for, it's time to check out the room at last. This will be my first time checking out one of the newer rooms aboard Royal Caribbean, so let's see how it goes. For reference, I'd opted for room 6304. It was a balcony stateroom on board. A little bit more later into the video around what really detracted from this room, but for now, we'll check out some of its main features in the inside space. Overall, I thought the new room's design was fantastic. The bathroom was one of the best laid out bathrooms I've ever seen on any cruise ship, and this was largely thanks to the design of the shower. It was extra large from what I've seen on other ships, and that curved glass door played ever so well in terms of getting in and out of the shower. It wasn't a case where you spin round, you bash your elbows on the side of it. It was a real feeling of space, and that worked really very well indeed. As did was the room's storage. Gone are the days as you access into the room was a cramped little corridor and wardrobe off to the side. Here, everything was more split out. It was more lighter, it was more airy, but it was a design that worked, I can tell you, a treat. There was some generous charging as well, with thanks to both US and also European plug sockets, and also little USB inputs as well. I'm glad to say there was also charging next to the bed. It was nice to see a big flat screen television directly in front of the bed, almost like a 5-star hotel. And here, as promised, you can start to see the extent of the storage, not just in those wardrobes areas, but also the cupboards across the top of the bed. Such a good utilization of space. We had an awful lot of luggage with us. We were on a large trip across China and Southeast Asia. We were packing for both hot and warm climates, but actually, despite all of the clubber that we came with, the room had no issues whatsoever fitting it all in. In summary, the room itself was fantastic. However, as already alluded to, there was trouble in paradise. Let's head on out to the balcony and see exactly where things started to go wrong. As you probably noticed by now, the stateroom has quite an obstructed view. I went for a guaranteed balcony on this cruise, cheaped out a little bit as ever. On previous ships, it's never really been much of an issue, but one point that's very much worth making with the Ovation of the Seas is that given the location of the lifeboats are not particularly tucked in to the ship, as they so often are on the older design of ships, it does cause a little bit of an obstruction. If I take a seat for a moment and get down more to a seated level here, you can see that it's right in the eye line. And when you're stood up, you can at least see over a little bit, but ultimately you're seeing a lot more purely sky than you'd otherwise want to see. A recommendation is that if you are going for a balcony room, do spend a little bit more and make sure that you do get one with a much better view. This ship also has an awful lot of recessed balconies, so they're away flush from the edge of the ship. The section in the front third generally has the best ones in my opinion from a view perspective alone, but with this one, just to give you the full view, it's a little bit of an issue and probably not worth the savings that we made. A little later into the video, I'm going to break down for you exactly what we paid on this ship, because I think it was still a really good deal, and then you can judge whether the saving was worth that big compromise on the balcony view. For now, however, let's head on through and check out a little bit more of the rest of the ship before we take to the seas. As you can see, we've arrived in the ship's casino, Casino Royale. This was a space that was very well executed indeed, as too was the music hall. This was split over a couple of floors. It was a multi-use entertainment space, seemed to work really well whenever we visited. The theatre had capacity for around 1,300 guests. When getting there a little bit early for the shows, we had no issue at all getting a seat, and the shows themselves were really very entertaining indeed. As too were the shops on board. These were all down in the heart of the ship aboard the Royal Promenade. It was good to see Royal Caribbean sticking with this concept from the Voyager class and Freedom class ships as well. Here, very modern in terms of the decor. I really like the way that everything was set out, and the ship had a really nice flow about it. We've covered off many entertainment venues for adults, but what then about the kids, or even the big kids, one of which features prominently in this video? Well, we're going to head up to one of the very top areas of the ship, as you can see with that slight vertigo-inducing view a moment ago, and we're going to arrive at the SeaPlex. This was by far one of the most impressive venues on the ship. It featured a full-size basketball court which doubled up as a venue for all sorts of activities throughout the day and the night. The sports staff did an excellent job of keeping a high-tempo schedule, I can tell you, up here. They had dodgems, there was archery, there was badminton, there was even Xboxes across the top, there was various different food venues as well. It was a super place. I like the fact that it was also indoors. On these Southeast Asia cruises it can get awfully hot, but this ship also serves Alaska, so I can imagine some issues at the other end of the temperature scale as well. So to have that venue that's always working was really great to see. But of course, it wouldn't be a Royal Caribbean cruise without some more adventurous activities. The Ovation of the Seas featured both the Flowrider and also skydiving. More on those costs for doing them a little bit later on. But for now, let's kick back, relax, and have a quick tour of the spa. When in Rome. Oh. Alrighty. Oh god. Okay, little light just here. Oh, that's perfect. Nice and warm. It was indeed a very relaxing few minutes. The lady that did such a super job in showing us around really did Royal Caribbean an awful lot of credit. We weren't to return, sadly, to the spa. The cost of the treatments now is ever so high. We just didn't get the chance also on this cruise. We did get a chance, however, to visit the gym. It's always a good thing to do, particularly given how many calories are consumed both through food and drink, which we'll be doing in full detail a little bit later on. The gym had ever such prime real estate on board. It was right at the very front, very high up on the ship, so good views were very much guaranteed. As for the equipment, it was okay, but certainly nowhere near as good as what you'd expect from a high-end commercial gym. By this time, however, we were nicely settled into the cruise. We just set sail from Singapore, so it was time to head to the bar for that first welcome drink. Alrighty, so at long last it's time for that first drink. Cheers. Cheers.
Strong, but it's good.
Strong it was indeed. That bar proved to be one of our favourite ones throughout the cruise, not just the position of it, but the bar staff were absolutely great, did such a good job. This next section of the video, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the watering holes on board. There was such a variety of different bars, each with their own look, feel, and also menu. So if you do like a particular drink, do shop around the ship. It's likely that it may well be a little bit more prominent in one of the other bars. Talking of decent drinks, Bolero's was a brand new venue for me on Royal Caribbean. It had the most attractive menu I've ever seen. That's one that I would consider taking a look at. Also, more towards the aft of the ship was Vintages. It's a name that pops up so much across the Royal Caribbean group. It's my personal favourite. I'm a big wine lover. It didn't disappoint. It was quite interesting to see them including some food elements, or sadly an upcharge. But if you did want a little nibble whilst having perhaps your pre-dinner drink, as we were doing so here, that was fully available, courtesy of Jamie's Italian restaurant next door. It's fair to say that many of these newer mega ships have some quirky features. The bionic bar was incredibly innovative. I think in practice a little bit gimmicky, but like all of the other bars on board this Southeast Asia cruise, it was nice and quiet. The drinking culture isn't anywhere near the same as what you get on the Mediterranean and Caribbean routes, so therefore as you walk up to each bar, there's generally someone always waiting to serve you, which was fantastic.
Alrighty, so we've made it as far as the schooner bar, which you can see up behind me. Now, this one has long been one of my favourite bars on board. Some of the smaller ships that we go on in the Radiance class, my goodness, it has wonderful views out the window. With this one, I guess we'll see exactly what it's like and see whether they've nailed the theming as they have done on the older ships.
Yes, the schooner bar is great to see. Royal Caribbean keeping old traditions alive and also doing them so damn well. The staff in this bar are by far and above the best that we encountered anywhere on the ships. The entertainment, as ever, in the schooner bar was top notch, and the drinks, well, they're as good as they always are.
Following one of the best wine menus that I've ever seen on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. This is the Oberon, it's a personal favourite of mine, so let's see how it goes. It's fantastic.
That was a little tasting there in the main dining room, which as mentioned had a really attractive wine menu. So what then about the food, I hear you cry? We've been focusing on the drinks ever so much. In this next section of the video, we're going to do a deep dive on the food, both the good but also the bad, starting off with the downsides.
So it's currently 1:45 in the afternoon. We've been to the Windjammer to try and get a table. We've been to the bistro, but no luck at all. I've never once before been on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship where it's impossible to get a table. We're gonna go back to the Windjammer, see if we can get in there, and then I'll try and show you a little bit of the food, but my goodness, this is hard going.
So where it all started going wrong was we had a late arrival into a port, so it was your typical busy rush, quick lunch before jumping off the ship, and frankly some of the more traditional areas in the Windjammer were completely swamped. The Windjammer Cafe has capacity for 700 passengers aboard the Ovation of the Seas, and at full capacity there's almost 5,000 guests on board, so you can guess exactly how that went. Therefore, dear cruisers, there is a strategy that one needs to adopt when they're on some of these larger ships, and that's to play them a little bit in line with how they've been created. See, on previous cruises, you'd simply default, almost like a robot, up to the Windjammer, maybe for your breakfast and your lunch, etc. Whereas on these ships, they're all more about smaller, more intimate dining settings, so therefore they've downsized some of the more traditional, very large restaurants to allow space to have more variety on board. It's a really good thing, but it can really suck, I can assure you, if you get caught out by it. So, over the next section of the video, I'm going to give you a little guide as to what to look into when you are looking for those smaller, more intimate dining settings on board. So in line with that, first up we've got fish and chips. It's a fish and chip style of restaurant, and like so many of the other similar ones on board, it's giving you that very specific taste of something a little bit different, and to get that variety you can purely do a different one day to day. This one was really very well executed. I just wanted a little taster portion and they delivered really well on that front. As to was the doghouse. This was back in the SeaPlex, the sports court area that we checked out a little bit earlier on. Again, another option for you for a quick grab and go, as too was the Promenade Cafe. Or if you wanted something a little bit more bougie, there was the La Patisserie here. There was a small upcharge for the various different cakes, but actually it wasn't much and they looked really very good indeed. It became very quickly clear that with these newer, bigger ships, there's way more variety going on, which in amongst itself is actually a good thing, but one simply needs to adjust their strategy to get the most out of it. So for those quieter moments on board where the ship's in port and you're looking for a leisurely lunch, yeah, the Windjammer will probably work, but at those moments in time where 4,000 or 5,000 people are trying to have their breakfast eggs before jetting off the ship, that's where you need to be far more strategic, and that's where I'd actually check out the main dining room, for example.
With it being a little bit quieter back on the ship just now, it's a great opportunity to check out some of the specialty restaurants. They've actually got a special offer tonight. It's 50% off, given the fact that the ship is going to be in port a little bit longer tonight. Hence, it's a good opportunity to head on down and see what they're like. Now, it's probably going to be Chops Grille that we go to. That's one that I've got a lot of experience with. It's always well worth the try, particularly with the discount on offer. That all being said, there's a number of specialty restaurants down here, so we'll head on down and give you a little look to see what they're like.
So the first one that we'll check out is Wonderland. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to do this on this cruise. It was a little bit weird and wonderful, if I'm going to be honest, slightly off-putting, and to be honest, when you go in during the day, you don't always get the full vibe as what you would in the evening when it's properly open. But yeah, it was a little bit, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland style almost, a little bit quirky, and given the fact that we only really had time to do one specialty restaurant, I didn't feel quite confident enough to do it. So what then about some of the more traditional options on board? Well, the Italian, which in days of future past with Royal Caribbean had been Giovanni's, have been replaced by celebrity chefs Jamie's. There was Azumi as well, which is the Japanese restaurant. This is a concept the Royal Caribbean seem to be working on an awful lot at the moment. That's a space to watch. I've actually got a cruise coming up where we'll do specialty restaurants on each and every single night, and I'll be featuring the new Azumi concept as part of that, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. The specialty restaurant that we actually managed to do, however, though, was Chops. Such a traditional choice on board. I've had some epic experiences in here over the years. On this particular ship, it wasn't great, to be honest. Certain aspects were great. The starter was absolutely phenomenal, but actually the position of the restaurant wasn't at all good. You purely looked out over the lifeboats, which was a bit of a jarring view, especially given what we had up in our stateroom. It seemed to be a repeating factor, and the service was a little bit average too. But otherwise, specialty restaurants on board, it was good to see them having the variety. Again, another advantage of these bigger ships. Over the course of the cruise, we got to take in some fantastic destinations, including Penang in Malaysia, which is the food paradise island, and also Phuket in Thailand, where the weather was incredibly hot and absolutely gorgeous. It was for that reason, and of course that reason alone, that we had to take in plenty of liquid refreshment. That was also the port that we got to check out, one of the key features on board.
Just behind me is the famous North Star. That's something that we're going to give a little go. We haven't booked it today, and unfortunately it can be a little bit tricky if you haven't booked, but we're going to hop on and see exactly what it's like. As this is a port day, it's free of charge. For tomorrow when we're at sea, sadly it would be chargeable, so let's see if we can hop on today.
And the good news is that we managed to get on, and what an experience it was. So let's talk about the all-important fees. The price paid for this cruise was £916, a little over £100 a day per person. Overall, a fantastic deal, but with a heavy compromise on the room, one that I wouldn't go for in the future. If battling 4,000 plus people for breakfast doesn't sound like your vibe, you need to see my experience aboard the Celebrity Equinox. No crowds, a glass solarium, and even a frozen martini bar. Click the video on the screen right now to see the best kept secret in cruising.